Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Small Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, Chief Strategic Guide of Eagle Eye Strategies, based in Louisville, Kentucky. Little housekeeping, if you haven't already done so, please, subscribe, and once you listen to this episode or any of the other episodes, please leave us a review. I want to know if we are doing a good job, both with what I am interviewing with my guests. If you have something the guests specifically said that really stood out to you, that made a lot of, it just made good impact for you in that day. Or if my video editor is doing a great job, let me know. Let me know what's working well. And connect with us. Stay up to date. Go to smallbusinesssmalltalk.com. Find your favorite channels and subscribe to them, and leave us a little note, preferably a good review. Thumbs up, yay, to keep us going. Okay, so quit saying so much. And of course, as usual, I'll probably say I'm super excited about this guest. I will caveat this one. This is a replay of a previous interview I had done. Probably interviewed Pixie Paula, I think it was 2000, into 17, into 18, somewhere around in there. And because it was such a good interview, I wanted to replay this. But I wanted to also set you up really well for what this interview is. So got the Small Business Small Talk basics out of the way. I do want to thank my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews. So if you have not tapped into your local Chamber of Commerce, please connect with me. I'll help you tap into mine. We are a vibrant community of business folks, as well as community folks that get together where business and community bridge the gap, intersect, and connect. And it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. And they've done a fabulous job through all of the 2020 pandemic stuff and back into live action events, which has been pretty extraordinary. You don't realize how much you miss people until you've missed people. So get back out there as you can, safely, socially distanced, so that, as we get new waves of the variants coming through, people just be smart about it. That's all I'm going to say on it. So let me preface this guest. Paula Dezzutti. Y'all, she is a firecracker. And honestly, she doesn't even go by her last name. It's just call her Pixie Paula. Now, we'll kind of cover it in the interview, but she's not considered Pixie because she's adorable. She's a little small firecracker, and she is all over the place. So she is into a lot of different things. She's got a well-versed background of technology businesses, finance and accounting. She's owned her own businesses for a long time, but what's really making her stand out to me now, because, I'm in Kentucky, which is bourbon capital of the world, is the Bardstown of Kentucky, and we do love our spirits around here. She kind of rocked the world. Let me just go ahead and read this bio to you so I don't mess it all up. She celebrates and supports the modern woman. So we are going to talk about what it's like to be a women-owned business in a male-dominated industry. Encouraging her towards personal growth and professional success. She is an entrepreneur to the core, serving as the CEO of 2 organizations. Skirt Magazine in Charleston, South Carolina's first women's magazine. First women's magazine in Charleston, South Carolina, where she also serves as editor-in-chief. And this is one of my favorites, Local Choice Spirits, a family-run, award-winning brand development and distribution platform. She partners with celebrities to do their own spirit brand. So all those fancy celebrity brands of things that are out there, Pixie's probably the one that got them hooked up for that. She is also a mother of 9. Y'all, 9 kids. She's balanced a bustling home life with boundless professional growth, and she wants you to realize that you can do the same. she's just amazing. She's amazing to talk to. She's high energy, no caffeine. I don't know how people do that. I'm working on it. I've cut it down a lot, but whew, it's another reason to call her Pixie. She's like little pixie dust everywhere. She's awesome. And I can't wait for you to hear this episode of Small Business Small Talk. I want to welcome you to Pixie Paula. Entertainment to help you ride the business roller coaster. And today I'm so excited. I have a fascinating guest with me to share her story and insights into being a strong female business owner in a very male-dominated industry. I recently was introduced to Pixie Paula and was so excited about what she has lived out, and I wanted to bring that to you through this podcast. Now, to give you a quick little bit about Pixie Paula, she founded Local Choice Spirits in 2011. And Local Choice Spirits is an award-winning, woman-owned, family-run spirits brand development and distribution platform based in Charleston, South Carolina. She's also the owner of Striped Pig Distillery, the first South Carolina distillery since Prohibition. Recently awarded the South Carolina Distillery of the Year. Congratulations. Pixie Paula draws on over 30 years of leadership in financial services, real estate development, and entrepreneurial life, meaning her partners and clients benefit from the incredibly strong business acumen she brings to her work, whether a new opportunity, startup company, or project. And representing numerous community boards such as Charleston Interreligious Council and the Harbor Entrepreneur Center, Pixie Paula gives passionate keynote speeches from a diverse business background, understanding how to motivate and engage her crowd. As the proud owner of Skirt magazine, Paula uses her voice and platform to empower women as she gives them a space to support and lift each other up with shared stories and experiences. Mother of 9, female-owned distillery of the year, where they live out, our family is your family. I want to welcome Pixie Paula. Pixie Paula, I am so excited to have you on Small Business Small Talk today.
I'm so excited to be here. That was fabulous. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like incredible stuff. How could we share this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm so delighted about it.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. And congratulations to you too on everything that you're doing. And I'm really humbled from the bottom of my heart. I'm so appreciative that you're even pulling the universe together like this, because without you, we can't do anything. So thank you so much.
Well, we got introduced through a mutual friend of ours, Kirk Hilbrick, and so I wanted to give him a quick little shout out because I know he will share this podcast with his circle of friends as well. And I really have been very interested when we first had our conversation, and actually prior to that, when Kirk was telling me about you, he was raving on and on and on about all of this amazing stuff that you had done, and he's like, she's just so awesome and you should talk to her. And like, okay, I really want to talk to her. And then of course we had our conversation and I was floored by the amount of life you've put into your short time on this earth. And I have to admit to my own followers out there that yes, I already thanked her for having children for me, because most of my people know I don't have children. And so being a mother of 9 and a female-owned business owner, right? So you have not one, but how many businesses have you had done now?
I'm right now running 7 corporations, and I know just because I just did the Venn diagram at lunch trying to explain it to somebody. So I know when I think of, it's a lot. It is a lot, but you know, it all works.
So tell me how you got started with all of it. So origin story, if you will.
Mostly I say the alien abduction. That's probably where it all started. You know, because we're women, right? We're amazing. Every one of us has an amazing tale and an amazing story. And together, it just is what makes us so miraculous, right? The strength of how women can just really come together. So I don't really think of it as anything different or unique. For me, I just jump on opportunity. And I love people so genuinely that I want to be involved. I want to help. I get excited. I feel like I was given a skill set that's pretty remarkable, and I feel accountable for that. Like that, the weight of that the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, gave me this feeling of love, unconditional love. And that's what I really say I'm about, unconditional love and possibility. It's owning your purpose, living your purpose, being your purpose. And so I just embrace everything that's out there as something miraculous to add to playing with ourselves and expanding ourselves to the best that we can be. You know, women are like that. We just want to push the envelope, push the limit. So I don't know. That's how you get started. I just go for it.
Now, I've said from the beginning, I totally love your energy. So it'd be nice to be able to like bottle that up, but I'm not giving you this idea today.
Okay, so I want to tell you a story. So first of all, I always say, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. I'm Italian, like as Italian as they come. And probably
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. I shouldn't move so fast. I know, right? So that's where the energy comes from. But my great grandmother, she died at like 104. She had 8 children. I think she like buried most of her children before she passed. And she was still, never spoke a word of English. She was still cooking, cleaning, making the bread, making the pasta, doing the work for everybody, running all the meals. Like that was my inspiration. And it's funny because she was like 3'10". We used to call her little grandma. I'm 4'10", so I feel like I'm the tall one in my family. Hence the little pixie thing. People even say you're not really 4'10", you're stretching it. I'm like, no, I'm definitely, but I feel 6 feet tall at least. So that was my great grandma. My Aunt Clara was one of these women that like into her 90s, never married, running around like crazy. Same thing, cleaning the house for everybody, making the cooking, doing all this stuff. So I felt like, okay, there's some good genes there. Part of the other part of the family, not so much. But they were remarkable influences in my life. And I had one cousin, Laura, too, that was the same way. It was like constant energy. So I always noticed that when I was a kid. I was like, where does that come from? And every morning, still to this day, when I get out of bed in the morning, I put like one toe down on the floor to feel the energy of the floor to see if I still have it. Because I'm like, what if all of a sudden, like, it goes away? It's like this immeasurable energy that just shows up and you don't know where it comes from. I don't know where it comes from. It feels like this internal light that's just making you explode. And I'm so grateful for it. But honestly, I worry every day, like, oh my God, what if I use up my consumption? I'm going to dry up in the morning.
Well,
and that's on no caffeine, by the way.
Oh boy. So I don't know if you follow Brendan Burchard at all, but he has this thing about, you know, you are generating energy. So it doesn't like just start, like you continue to generate that energy. So I don't think you'll ever really run out as long as you continue to generate it. And I don't think you have a problem with that. So,
well, from a physics perspective, quantum physics, right? Objects in motion stay in motion. So that's true.
Yes. Yes. So I don't think you have any worries there. Now, did your children also inherit this level of?
Some of them. My youngest daughter, Raya, it's R-Y-A-H. It's Gaelic for spirit of the wind. Yeah, she's like, shoo, shoo, shoo. Where did you go? Like you don't know what she's doing next. So she's pretty much like that. You can't tie her down even for a minute. And then, you know, 9 kids, you think they'd be similar. They're all so completely unique and different. They're all so unusual. They all have different goals and aspirations. And one of the advantages and the loves that I have every day is being a family-owned business because I get to work with them every day. I get cheated out of being grandma. They call me the hip hop grandma because I do so much in the hip hop world. But I get cheated out of grandma because the kids see me every day. So then they don't want to see me after the day. And I'm working so hard that it takes away that time. So I think I reminisce about the old days, Little House on the Prairie days, where, you know, it was just about a lot of simplicity. I miss that.
Was that ever really a thing?
I think it was. I mean, lights out at 6 o'clock when there was no electricity. What else could you do? Yeah, it was a thing.
Yeah, well, yes, I guess so. So
then you had harder work, right? You had to get up at the crack of dawn. So then at 4 a.m., you're out milking the cows, getting the chickens, you know, getting the firewood. So it's always work. You know, one thing I learned a long time ago. So I have these distinctions that I've had over my life that have really, what I credit to the aha moments that I got that really developed my business structure. And one of them is that work will always expand into the amount of time you have to do it in. And it's so true. When you have a deadline of 2 or 3 weeks, you know how you push it out, you're not as fearful. You don't like, oh, let me get this done 2 weeks ahead of time. That rarely happens to us. We're
Right.
usually on deadline. So work does expand into the amount of time you have to do it in. If you have an hour to get something done, you get it done. So that's a distinction that's really important for, I talk a lot about, I do seminars and private speaking for, and coaching for time management. And I always say time management is not the management of time. It's the management of your emotions in any given experience of time. So how we look at how we're managing that time is really governed by our emotions. And that's why our work never gets done until we're like last minute on the deadline, because it's emotional. It has nothing to do with the illusion of the number of seconds in a day. Nothing to do with the number of seconds in a day.
So it's interesting that you bring up that emotional energy piece. How important do you think it is for us, especially as women, like you are in a male-dominated industry, to manage the emotion?
I think, I was trained by Stephen Covey and Dan Goldman, emotional intelligence. So I'm going to have probably a unique experience. It's not been threatening for me, but I've really struggled as a woman about being coached to harness my emotion in business deals. And the reality is that they say, oh, never make a big decision when you're in the middle of a high emotional state. And I'm like, I have enough experience to know that your best decisions are made in the middle of heated emotion. And when you execute within that emotion, when that intensity is high, it's time or intensity. You can drag something out that you are not emotional about for a long period of time. When you have intensity behind that, when you have a high emotional state, you're going to execute and bring to fruition and manifestation pretty quickly. So I think you should only make decisions when you are so highly emotionally moved and charged that you are ready to act. That's your greatest predictor of success. That emotion, that intensity is your greater prediction of success. Even if the decision was the wrong decision, you are more likely to generate a result that's positive and successful for you moving forward. One of the talks I do is keep in motion until the emotion catches up. Sometimes we can't even label or identify or state what our emotions are. But if you can get into a peak state, and I don't care if that's screaming and crying, this is me walking through fire. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. And I keep walking. Just keep the motion. So I'm all about using the emotions. Don't tailor them. Don't cut them down.
Now, see, my experience when I worked in corporate, and of course I had the boss, and I was not anywhere near the top of the totem pole. And I had an issue internally with one of the ladies in the office, and they brought us into the conference room, and the guys thought it was going to be good for us to talk it out. And she was not going to have it. So we were at this table, and I expressed, here's my side of the story. And she got really worked up and started yelling and walked out. And I needed to take a moment to compose myself. And so I stayed in the room behind. And my boss came back in because I was just so full of, I really want to say something right now, but it's not appropriate energy. So I just needed to release that steam. He comes in the middle of that moment and says, if you can't handle your emotions, you will never be successful. And that was my quote unquote career mentor boss of my, corporate life. And so that's what I grew up under, knowing now people don't mind me being showing some real emotion.
Yes. Well, I think the thing is identifying the right emotion, right? So sometimes emotion is hard to label. And so we're operating out of fear or frustration as opposed to real, maybe excitement or joy. So tabling the emotion, it should better be said as make sure you really identify what that emotion is and then unleash that beast, because it's really what's going to bring something into manifestation quickly. Law of attraction says that what you think about, you bring about, and what you think about with intensity, you bring about quicker. So when you can start to narrow the gap between how you feel about something and how much positive attention you put on it, you're going to manifest quickly. So if you're talking about business success and you want to get some visibility and some success in what you're doing, you need intensity. You just need, think about this. If you wake up in the morning, you're a coffee drinker, and for some reason you can't get your coffee, all you think about all morning long is, I need a cup of coffee. I need a cup of coffee. I need a cup of coffee. Well, how likely are you, if you're a coffee drinker, to get a cup of coffee in the morning? Pretty likely, like almost close to 100%. You manifest that cup of coffee because you know how you feel. You could label it, you could identify it, and you're like, I don't need motivation, I need coffee. And you make sure that you set it up that almost 100% of the time you have a cup of coffee in the morning. That's pretty good odds on manifestation. That the coffee wasn't like piped in from some long channel platform from Mars. Like you were able to set that up to make sure that desire of yours, which was a non-negotiable for you, pretty much goes fulfilled. Okay, the universe, the brain, they don't know the difference between coffee and $1 million. They don't know the difference. We leave ourselves. We leave without the emotion. We leave without the belief that we can produce the $1 million. We can focus on, oh, it was easy for me to produce the coffee, but the structure, the strategy, the steps, exactly the same. The brain cannot decipher between $1 million and a cup of coffee. It's exactly the same structure. So we need to lead with the same thing. And that comes from the positivity of, I'm setting this up. I am going to have this. And it's non-negotiable for me. I am going to make $1 million this year. That becomes non-negotiable, just like the coffee. You have the greater chance of success. We get in the middle, right? Women sometimes are our own worst enemies because we carry this space of sometimes shame, non-deserving space, lack of self-confidence, lack of a support cheerleading structure that says, you know, you can do this, you can have it all. Our self-doubt widens the gap between our manifestation. That's the only thing that's happening. And for those women or men, this is not, you know, this is the human race we're talking about here. For those people that do not have those doubts in their way, they're going to manifest those desires quicker. That's all. Just because there's no diversions along the way.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that word diversion. What sort of challenges have been in your way that you've been able to apply what you've learned about life, what you've learned about emotional energy and law of attraction and things like that to overcome those kind of challenges? So
you mean like
tell us about your roller coaster, Paula.
I say, besides 9 kids, husbands, and being in male-dominated industries, and lack of capital, interruption of supply, self-doubts, health issues, you know, life stuff, you know, the dentist, the doctor, the post office, all that. There's so much going on. I think attaching meaning to anything is what slows us down. So we do get diverted. And I've been exploring this a lot lately myself anyway, because I've gone through a major life transition and I'm flying solo and out here trying to step into being all that I could be. And I don't have any excuses. So I will have some parts of my tribe who are cheering me on saying, I do manifest like the speed of light, but what's holding me back? I have some negative self-talk, even though I know better. I say my monkey brain and my bullshit belief system is telling me, okay, you've really bitten off more you can chew this time, or this is going to be a hard one for you to pull off. And I don't put it in perspective to all the things I pulled off in the past. Every new thing seems like it's this distraction or diversion that, oh, this is going to be the one that I can't overcome. And that little bit of distractive self-talk is really, truly disempowering. But sometimes I wonder if it's necessary. So does it cause us to pull back, sharpen the saw? And if we're sharpening the saw so that our execution is better anyway, then was it really a diversion? And who's controlling that space? So the angel devil on the shoulder kind of thing, I always say monkey brain and pixie fairy, because I have both of those going on for me. I have monkey brain, who is trying to analyze everything and give me all the reasons why it won't work. And then I have Pixie Fairy that says, just wave your little magic wand and wiggle your nose and make it happen. So they go back and forth all the time. And sometimes I sit back and I'm like, okay, I'm going to let you two duke this out. And I'm just going to sit back and read like Be Your Purpose or Discovering Your Purpose or The Purpose-Driven Life or whatever I have to read. And I'll always, or the Bible or the comics or like anything. It seems like something will always jump out at the right time to give you that thing that you were looking for, to give you the inspiration to get back on track. So again, I'm not so sure that the diversions or the distractions are not real sharpening skills for implementation. And I'm trying not to judge them right now because I am being so hard on myself. I think we as women, we're so hard on ourselves. We think that we should have accomplished more, done more, given more, been more than we are. We're hardest on ourselves than anybody ever would be. And we cheer each other on, but we're really hard on ourselves. And so I'm trying to learn. I came up with a new life distinction and I said, okay, I'm not going to get as much done this week as I thought I was going to, but I'm going to get done more this year than I ever could have imagined. And all of a sudden, that allows me to throw away my to-do list and just focus on my broader vision of remaining on track for my purpose. I'm not measuring myself now in these tiny little spaces that give me the opportunity to be up on myself. And then when there is a distraction, I'm not feeling off task. So by just widening that space, I have freedom. You know, when we can lose meaning and the attachment to meaning and free ourselves to be limitless in our creativity, we really solve so many more problems, or more importantly, the problems resolve themselves. And you just move along into the fluidity of where you needed to be, especially in the business model. And I'm actually testing that out this year. And I'm telling you, it's true.
I had last year been given a book to read, Florence Scovel Shinn. And she was in that same generation of Napoleon Hill. And she is a great writer and teacher of truth affirmations, metaphysics, things like that.
Uh-huh.
But it bridges an affirmation and Bible understanding. So that helps me because
Yes,
I get really tangled up in just affirmations because I'm like, it's all about me when I want it to be biblically based. But one of the things that she had taught in there is, you know, face the lions, like your
yes.
fear, your self-doubt, just walk straight up to it. Every single time it disappears. So there's no reason for us to even have it to begin with when it's just not really there. What is it, that concept, the paper tiger? It's not really there. It's not as big as we make it out to be. Our criticism of ourselves is not necessary. If we know our truths, if we know what we're about, if we know how we want to step into our own little show, if you will, then just do that thing. I just listened, and the funny thing, you and I are having this conversation. I just listened to another interview today. It was Gary Vaynerchuk and a young lady who's getting ready to do an NBC late night show. I forgot her name. She's a YouTube star. And they were talking about this very subject of just removing all self-doubt. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Don't be so critical. Don't worry about all that. And Gary will phrase it into micro bits, like you'd said, the tiny bits, and macro. So he's real big on micro and macro. And to take this long-term view, and I'm very big on having that vision of what is this big thing that I'm going towards, because all of this little stuff is going to shift almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me, give me some more on, I looked through your business information, and you are like a whiz at celebrity branding. So with your distilleries and some things that you've done, what has been one of the most fun projects you've ever done?
Oh, they're all so much fun. I'll tell you though, Okay, one of my favorite moments was I did a brand called Gentry Bourbon, and we launched it on Southern Charm. And I'm from Charleston. It takes place in Charleston and has a lot of the elite in Charleston on the show. And it's really a show that's seen around the globe. I mean, it has high visibility. And so we launched Gentry Bourbon, and we carried the storyline out of the distillery, and it brought it into some of the people on the show as launching the brand. And it's my brand, but I partner all my brands. I co-brand with a lot of people, a lot of celebrities. I don't do endorsement deals. We're full-on business partners. So we launched it on the show. It was called The Beast of Bourbon, was the episode on Bravo. And, Bravo will cross a lot of the shows off of other shows. And at the same time, I was working on a show with Ladies of London with Marissa Hermer and also the Braxtons. Trina Braxton, we're working on a bourbon. And Tiny and T.I. So I've got Tiny's Tequila. So that's the Braxton's is We, Oxygen on Tiny, and then Housewives in New York City with Countess Luann, also Bravo. So I had all of these things going together on cross-network shows, and I thought, this has never been done before. No one's ever launched a product with a bunch of people from different networks, and they're all talking about building brands, with Pixie Paula and Local Joy Spirits, and it's hitting all these different networks. I'm like, this is pretty phenomenal. And so we had a launch of the Gentry Bourbon for the Bravo show, and I had also done Kurt Thomas Moonshine. Kurt Thomas was Zach Brown's original partner, and we launched the Moonshine, and then we launched Eubanks Gin with Dwight Eubanks, who's on Botched, Married to Medicine, and Housewives of Atlanta. So we had a big party, and everybody got invited. And when I showed up to the event, they do the red carpet, they put the step and repeat and everything up, and everybody was there. And I walked in, and the band, and now I have Tyler Boone too, who's also an artist. I walked in at the time, the band was Kurt Thomas Band playing all of the music. All the food was done through the networks and the shows on the networks, and the talent that was there. Dwight Eubanks was there with the Housewives of Atlanta team, and there was a chocolatier that was there that had been on the We channel. Oh, and then I had Hatfield and McCoy whiskey at the time too, from the Kevin Costner movie. And the bar was all my products and all of my friends. Like, these guys are my friends, right? Everyone's in the same room. And at a moment, I looked around and I saw the banners for Local Choice Spirits, and we had Pour Proudly. We have a sip and share model because we give back. And I thought, oh my God, I did this. Holy cow, I did this. Having everybody in the room being represented across the board with all those networks and genres, it was like the League of Nations, it was the We Are the World campaign for me. Everybody was in a room, and I realized I created this. That was probably the most touching moment that I had about the possibility of what this platform could do.
That's amazing. And that's one of the things that's just been really fascinating for me, is that to watch what you've done so far and to know that was only a start, right?
Yep.
Got so much more going on for the future of Pixie Paula that I can't wait to see what all's going to happen with that. So if you were to get, well, I'm probably sure you probably get young women entrepreneurs coming to you and say, give me your advice. What would you tell the aspiring young female entrepreneur out there nowadays?
It's the same advice I tell everybody everywhere. People think that they have to chase their passion, the thing that turns them on, gets them excited. And they've heard for a long time in entrepreneurism that follow your passion and the money will come, right? At the end of the day, they're looking for financial security, but why? What's the financial security for? It's to take care of their families. Ultimately, it is a demonstration of their love. And Just like when you're flying on an airplane, they say if we lose cabin pressure, the oxygen mask will be released from the cabin. Put the mask on yourself first and then on the people you're traveling with, especially children. It's the same thing. You must learn how to love yourself first. And by loving yourself, you need to know who you are. You need to know what your purpose is on the planet. You need to have a relationship with you and your purpose. Because passion comes and goes, it flares and wanes, money comes and goes, businesses come and go, people come and go. The only thing that will not leave you is your relationship to self and your purpose. And most people walk around going, I have no idea what my purpose is. What's the meaning of life? I don't know why I'm here. So that means you're operating as a machine. Because if you truly say, I don't know, then at least admit that I'm operating as a machine, that I've got subconscious programming moving me day to day if you don't even know. So the most important thing, because the rest will follow. It doesn't matter what happens to you or the economy or your fundraisers or your team or your family or your marriages or your health. It doesn't matter. You are impenetrable if you know your purpose. Figure that out first.
So what is in the future for Pixie Paula? What kind of plans do you have now? Cooking? Or do you want to share?
I do. I love writing, and Skirt Magazine gives me the ability to. I'm gonna do a plug right now because I was like, yeah, there's our.
So Skirt Magazine, tell me a little bit about that. That's been around for what, 25
years?
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes. I'm so excited. It's South Carolina. Well, it's the South's first empowerment magazine. And 25 years ago, launching a magazine that was just about entrepreneurship for women. I mean, this was like, a big deal.
Yes.
And just developing the content. There wasn't even that much content back there, But we wanted to be like women with attitude and women who are making a difference. And having that launch in Charleston, which is notably very archaic in recognizing kind of women's progressiveness, that also was a really big deal. So I'm so proud of the heritage behind that space. And what we're doing now, taking this into the next level, I would like for my platform to be international and to provide a network of women that really truly can embrace each other and build each other up. There's so many cliches and sayings, but they're true. Like, it takes a village to raise a child, or there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you can go alone, but if you want to go far, you better darn well go together. I think that creating this synergy between women everywhere by having the print part of the magazine or the written word, there's something still to the written word that's magical for me, but then getting it into a digital play or a membership play that allows women to come together and discuss those things. The old version of the old book clubs, right? So just getting together, reading these things, and then coming together to discuss the information. And information is in real time right now. I mean, and we're oversaturated with information. So filtering out what's practical and workable, for me, it has to be measurable, it has to make a difference in social impact, and it has to be pretty immediate. That's how I kind of govern myself on the things that I'm going to take on or what I'm going to do. But I'm very interested right now in humanitarian issues and spirituality. Somebody said this to me today and it was pretty powerful. Because I said, I keep being asked to write these books on this or that or the other thing, but my heart is longing to write about spirituality. And my publicists and my advisors are saying, stick to the business, stick to the women in business. That's what women need. They want to get to the next space. But I know in my heart of hearts that anything is a spiritual business. Business is a spiritual business. And if you don't have these key things, like I said, if you don't even know what your purpose is on the planet, what kind of value can your business bring to the world? So he said to me, but you know what? Spirituality has to be discovered, not sold. And so he said, they'll buy your business acumen because you're brilliant at business. And when you continue to get up and tell these stories, they can discover your spirituality. And at that point, provide the forum for them to have the ability to ask for that wisdom and to open those questions. So that's been really intense for me today, about saying, like, I want to write another business book because I want everyone to discover my spirituality, because I want to be able to share. So I think that's what's in the horizon.
That is so wonderful. And the spirituality part as a female business owner is just as important as learning how to do my bookkeeping. So, because for like you mentioned, discovering my purpose and being able to manage those emotions, like everything feeds together and has that spiritual base.
Yeah.
And those that see that and recognize it probably is a niche market. Let's be realistic. Some may not want to admit that there's a spiritual realm to the world, and that would not be necessarily your niche. But those of us that live in that are all for supporting that kind of a message too. So I'm sure there's a platform, an avenue out there. Absolutely continue to share those stories, because I know that's one of the things that I was like, yes, I want to talk to this person more. When you shared that, and I'm, bringing that to the forefront more, also opens the door for people to not be afraid to talk about spirituality.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm a scientist and a mathematician at heart. I mean, there's no way denying the science for me. So I tend to say this, well, if Einstein figured it out, do I really have to reinvent this? Can I just pick up where he left off? So I'm going with some, basic paradigms that I'm like, okay, I could accept this as somewhat of a truth. Now, certainly there's newer technologies and new information that we develop over time, but some of these basic truths, we can start off as a foundation. You don't really need to debate them. And a lot of people are still debating, there's the debate on, is the world flat or round? So that part I kind of shy away from, but I definitely need the science and the math behind it. What I have found, though, is when I'm solid in my positivity, then the chores that I have become a privilege. So I get excited when I'm in a good positive state. It's delightful for me to sit down with my numbers and figure out. It's a puzzle, right? It's a form of creativity. So you're not operating out of preservation or desperation. It's just creativity. And so now it's not a chore. It's like, oh, how can I embrace this?
I probably need to get some of your pixie dust, because I'm more of the Wonder Woman type, and I'm going to go into this as if it's battle on the bookkeeping. It's like, not my favorite thing. I'm just going to get in here. I'm going to fight it out until it's done, and then I'm out. And that's kind
of. Well, try this, because this is what I do. I say this. Oh, numbers are the download of the planet. So the entire universe is run by the sum of 0 to 9, right? And the record, we named them and labeled them, but we can pretty much, we run the whole entire world, and how it's been discovered is on using numbers from 0 to 9. So anytime you're working with numbers, you actually are opening up all the secrets of the universe. So even writing every single number is an opportunity for download of the hidden secrets of how the universe operates. Because it's all numbers.
Interesting. So if I just write like a $sign with 1,000,000,000, I'm opening that up, right? I just keep adding.
Yes. And even as you're looking at numbers, just say, what are you trying to tell me? It's an opportunity for hearing something. Just like if you were going into meditation, numbers create energy. So energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply transfers form. Right down to the tiniest atomic proton or neutron. There's no way to discount that. First of all, it's all an illusion anyway, but those things don't even exist without observation. And the only way that we can quantify them and measure them is because we've assigned a numerical value to them.
Okay, so Pixie Paula, I have to tell you, you have just like rocked my entire world when it comes to numbers, because I have a love-hate relationship with math. I'm good at it if I'm not distracted. Like, I have to give everything I've got to it so I don't mess it up. Numbers are like, they need to be right. And I'm kind of a perfectionist. I need to reconcile it to the penny. Kind of, where did the penny go? I can't just be good enough. Kind of like, I'm all wrapped up into this. I've not one time in my life, until you just said it, applied energy to numbers ever, except whenever it's negative in my bank account before. That's been
But I mean, that, in all honesty, thank you for that. I don't know who else needs to hear that little bit, but if I'm applying that same positive energy to the numbers within my own bookkeeping, in organizing my business and how to, even prep for taxes, past time to get that done, then there's positive energy going into the bookkeeping. There's positive energy going everywhere within all of the numbers that I'm managing.
Yes. Well, and you know where this is easy for you when you think about your birthday. So think about any time you have to write your birthday or your address. You know how it has a connotation that somehow those numbers pop up, or your phone number, right? They resonate differently. It's because there's energy attached behind those numbers. You become attached to them, familiar with them. They have generated a lot of memories for you, but especially on the birthday. And if it's interesting to add up all of the sum digits of all of your birthday and come up with what that single number is. And then between 0 and 9, like, what is that number? And then just like resonate on that number. So I don't believe so much in like astrology or numerology. Not that I disbelieve it, but I mean, I don't focus my attention on that when I'm talking about the vibration of numbers. It's not about astrology or numerology. It's more about pure vibration. So in other words, the fact that there's a formula to absolutely predict a right angle or an equilateral triangle, and that all of that forms the algorithms for the entire creation, manifestation of anything physical on the planet. Again, anything that's physical on the planet isn't being piped in from some channel in Mars. It's being made out of nothing, right? Out of nothing, stuff is created. And that's all based on atoms, protons, neutrons, all which carry numerical weight, mass. Any physical manifestation is mass.
It still fascinates me how we can talk in the air, right? When radio not first came out, when I first discovered radio when I was little, I had this box and you would turn it on and sound would come out. People in the box, I'm air quoting for those that are just listening, I'm air quoting, in the box, we're playing this music in this band, and I would circle around this box trying to find the band playing the music because it had to be in there somewhere, when in fact it was just going through the air. And so if we're, applying all of that same energy just to our day-to-day lives, how different could it be? So yeah, there's a lot of great conversation that happens around that. And I know with this specific podcast, we initially started talking about, that strong female entrepreneur in a male-dominated society. This whole conversation has been something completely different than guys would have anyway. And every Monday morning, I have my accountability partner and she and I get together, and we 8:00 every Monday morning, and it's early for me, it's late for her, and we come together and we have these conversations. We check in. Did you do your things? Are you on track? And then we have the female entrepreneur conversations about things that guys would never in a million years talk about, partly because some of it would scare them and they just run away from that part of the conversation just because we're females. The rest of it, it's not as direct. Like, it goes all over the place, and it's literally not in a box.
I think in older times, the way before women really were in the workplace, it was men in the workplace, and the way to keep men grounded and controlled was to have them deny their emotions or their sensitivities. And so it was gleaned into the men not to demonstrate or show any emotions, and that's what made them a real man, right? So that was really a control mechanism. And now that it's more open to talk about, now it's the opposite way. Now it's like, you've got to show you're feminine, even if you're a man. You've got to be sensitive to women's issues. You've got to embrace women as your equals. You've got to have sensitivity to their needs that are different than men. And it's changing, that pendulum and that transition. We really are in a transition space, and it's been tough. It's been tough on the women my age. It's been tough on the men my age, because it's a whole, I say, my bullshit belief system is just changing. Everything's changing. It's a paradigm shift about what's acceptable or not acceptable. So men learned to suppress any of those emotions, or to be feared being called out as some kind of pejorative name because they were too feminine. And I mean, heck, I mean, now we've discovered that there's new genes that new chromosomes even, that potentially identify that there's more than just male and female. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with artificial intelligence, because they can literally, create these machines to be humans. So, and have human emotion, which is pretty scary, right? How do you craft that up in a Petri dish? But apparently it's happening. So it's just, nothing goes anymore. And like, even trying to pretend that there's some controlled paradigm about everything is just placing limits on your own self. It's best to try to be limitless and have meaninglessness in your life, not attach meaning to it, and open the scope for just going with the flow instead of trying to control things. And I think that we're shifting. It's happening, but it's not painless. That's for sure. Not painless.
No, and I'm still seeing, like, you're right. I'm still seeing the pendulum even out there in some women owners who are very not so supportive of men during their transition time. Mm-hmm. Still very like judgmental and controlling, and negative towards men who aren't so quick to just merge well together in this new because
it's going to happen one way or another, because the workforce is changing. So because of the remote workforce, I mean, we work remotely, so many of us, right? So now men are home around their children as they're being raised, and women may enter the workforce, and it may be a financial decision that even if a man was the primary breadwinner, after a while, maybe the woman gets offered a higher position, because more and more women are entering the workforce at higher levels than men at this point, because of their education levels are starting to catch up. And so our younger generations are having more time in the workforce so they can get those equal pays, right? And besides, we're supposed to get equal pay for equal work, but that doesn't always happen, simply because man or woman, you're getting paid based on your length of time in the workforce, and that gives you your work experience. So now that men are starting to raise children, and there's a lot more stay-at-home dads, like, right, that wasn't even a concept that you heard of 30 years ago. So you've got stay-at-home dads that are around all of the emotion of their children, and the children are eliciting that emotion out of those men. They're getting more experience with domestic education. And the women are away, maybe at work, or maybe both of them are home and working remotely, so they're sharing in those responsibilities. But what elicits emotions from us? Where do we learn emotion? It comes in our infancy. And so a lot of times men were not around those infants to be able to experience, what does this emotion look like? They didn't have the garnered home experience. That's changing. And because we love our children, and most people will give anything for their businesses, and the businesses are our children. Don't confuse that. They would do anything to keep that baby alive, and you do the same, for your kids or your loved ones. So it's shifting the interaction with the stay-at-home dad, or the people who are working remotely, or the fact that a lot of men are forced to work with women when that maybe wasn't the case 30 or 40 years ago. They weren't forced to interact with this dynamic. And you know what? It's not even about gender. It's the same. It's socioeconomic, and it's cultural as well. And the fact that we've got a lot less homogeneity in the United States even. So it's even being forced to interact with different religious cultures, spiritual cultures, socioeconomic cultures. The old control of the stereotypical guy running a business is really fading fast, because the workforce just doesn't support it.
Yeah, very fast. I mean, just in the past 10 years, everything is like magically changed.
And those are the people that are struggling.
Yeah.
They don't want to let go.
And I see it a lot, especially in this area with the small businesses I work with. There are some hanger-oners, both sides of the coin, both genders, who just haven't quite got up to speed.
Yeah.
So, they'll either come around or they won't, and they'll be the dinosaurs of the bunch and, go on to retirement and go play golf all day. I'm not sure what they'll do. So, okay, one last question for you. For you, Pixie Paula, how do you define success?
It's interesting because I was having this conversation earlier today, and it came to be about, like, what do you have to do? For me, they were asking me, what do you have to do to generate your feeling of fulfillment or love in the world? Like, can you just accept that you don't need to achieve or accomplish anything? And so there's a technical answer, there's a spiritual answer, there's a practical application answer. I think that for me, I feel successful when I know that I have shared my skill set and my heart responsibly with the people that I interact with in a way that knows I've had an impact on their life. I feel fulfillment when I know that I have given all that I could possibly give. And it's less attached to what the results were as to the feeling inside about what drives me and what makes me feel fulfilled. And I can tell you that that has changed over the decades. So we have core values in life. And I know that in my 20s, it was one thing. Maybe it was about figuring it out and getting a job. And then in the 30s, it's getting married and maybe having children or figuring out if you're going to launch a business. In the 40s, it was kind of like trying to grow everything to the masses. In the 50s, for me, it's thinking about, okay, I may have more behind me than I had have ahead of me. What else do I want to do? And you get interrupted with the illusion of the scarcity of time. And I can see that it's changed from me being driven by the values of love and significance, having an impact, into now, as I'm older, what drives me is love, growing, and giving. So I might not have felt successful back or I wouldn't have even cared about how much I was giving back maybe in my 20s or 30s. That wasn't a measure of my fulfillment or success. For then, it was just getting the bills paid, getting a job, accomplishing the kind of the paradigm that the universe puts out for you. Now, it's so different. And I know that over time I would say, oh, it's so trite. You got all these really accomplished, wealthy people who say the only thing that mattered at the end of the day was love. And I'm like, well, that's because, they're billionaires. So it's easy for them to say that. And I can't fall in line with that. But I am moving into the space that I'm recognizing the things that drive me are growing and giving. And if I'm not following with what drives me on the value spectrum, I'm not going to feel successful. No matter what I'm doing, there's going to be this big hole. So for me today, success is measured by my growth and my give back.
Very good. So to share with all of our listeners and watchers of the video today, is there a place that people can follow you somewhere, like online? Do you have a website? Do you have somewhere that we can send people to?
Yeah, social media, Pixie Paula Official, Pixie Paula on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then Local Choice Spirits. I would love everybody to follow all of these things, by the way. Local Choice Spirits on all those same platforms. And Striped Pig Distillery on all the same platforms, and Skirt Magazine.
And then what I'll do is, as we share this out, I'll include all of those links. That way everybody will just kind of have an easy button to go link up.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
absolutely.
And we love interaction. I mean, I'm very accessible, and I want to share. I want to talk to people. I want to be here, growing and giving. I want to give back. I want to make a difference. And I think it's really hard to find. We have great information from a lot of people out in the universe, amazing stuff, but sometimes they're not accessible. I think the one thing I try to do is remain accessible. So it's like, if you call me, you have a good chance of talking.
Awesome.
That's why I'm always late. Always talking to everybody.
Well, I know I have very much enjoyed our conversation today, and I thank you very much, Pixie Paula, for joining us on Small Business Small Talk. I want to remind everybody, please join us for every new episode, and you really can ask Alexa to play the next episode of Small Business Small Talk. And with that, we will talk with you again on another episode. Thanks.
Wow, you guys, what a fabulous conversation. See, this is why I wanted to do the replay, because it was a great conversation. I learned a lot. It was just entertaining for me to be a part of moments with Pixie. But something I really wanted to go a little deeper in and to reiterate is the concept behind a couple of things that she said early on was that, let me find it. Work will always expand in the amount of time you have to do it in. So, and then the ensuing conversation about time management. So I've always told people about I use a purse analogy. Those women who are listening will know the same, but guys, think of your vehicles. Think of the truck that you may have just got. It's the same thing. The bigger the vehicle, the more crap that's going to be in it. The bigger the purse, the more crap you're going to put in the purse. Like the more amount of time is the more stuff that you're going to put into that, versus the less time, the smaller the purse. You're going to put just the essentials. That's how Jeep started. Just essential equipment provided. So if we take and focus on those essential things that need to be done with a specific deadline, I was like, oh gosh, that the process of that concept would make a lot more sense whenever it comes to planning something. If I think I'm going to give myself too much time because I'll put way too much crap in it, say like a presentation for a group, I may give myself way too much time to plan this, and then I'm trying to put 50 things in when I only need 5. So I like that, at least stepping back to then say, okay, I give myself what's the right amount of time to give myself for this? But I also don't want to give myself too little time to work on it, because I don't need that much stress in my life to try to do a 50-page presentation in 5 hours. That's not helpful. So trying to find that beautiful spot and then sticking to it. Don't readjust. Find the right purse. Find the right size truck. Okay, and then the other thing was management of emotions. So time management isn't about managing the time. It's about managing the emotions in the experience of time. I found that super fascinating, and it makes so much sense because we're all given the same amount of time in the day. What we do with it looks different, and how we feel in it definitely looks different for everybody. So and she mentioned that her best decisions were made in high emotional states because she's charged to movement. So emotions create energy. Like it is the energy that fuels us, is this emotional chemistry that we may have. Like we know if we have the desire to do something, it creates the chemical charges literally from our brain to our body to actually do something about whatever the thing is we have this emotional high state for. So it makes sense according to what happens in our brain based on what we're feeling. There's an electrical charge. Well, that electrical charge should be able to create movement. And because we are charged that forward moving action, it makes sense that you would want to have an awareness of what's happening with your emotions to know how to make decisions in the right time. So I know a lot of people love to just gather as much data as they possibly can, but then they get stuck in this analysis paralysis, like trying to figure out what's the best way and what's not going to work, versus at what point do you feel in your gut your emotional state. You know, if you were to watch the NCIS show, Jethro Gibbs always goes by his gut. You feel it. So are you paying attention to the emotional state? Your intuition is attached to your emotional state as well, because that's part of what's charging us. It's the intangible thing that's creating these chemicals in our body to do some forward movement. It's just brilliant. Do I have all the neuroscience technology in front of me to talk about this more? No, so I'll stop talking about it. But I would recommend, if that's something that caught your ear, go do some research. You will be fascinated by these concepts and the science behind it. So with that, I do want to give a huge shout out to, again, the Chamber, Chamber of St. Matthews here. They are my local sponsor partners. I also want to give a shout out to my own team at Eagle Eye Strategies for putting up with me taking time to do this podcast, because they're very supportive of me. Actually, just doing a lot of guest interviews. They learn a lot from my guests. So even if you turn out to not like this, it's okay. My team loves them. And my team always learns something from other people, because it's part of being on my team. So that's another good point about being on Small Business Small Talk. And I appreciate you listening, because there's always something to learn from other people. And if nothing else, that you're not in your business alone. You're not in that experience of being a business owner alone. And there's always something to learn from other people. So thank you so much for your time today and listening to Small Business Small Talk, or watching us on YouTube. Or if nothing else, you just went ahead and subscribed to smallbusinesssmalltalk.com. That'd be a great place to find your favorite channels to subscribe. And please, in those channels, leave us a great review. I would really appreciate that tremendously. With that, thank you again for your time today, and stay tuned for the next episode of Small Business Small Talk. I have been your host, Christy Smallwood.